Welcome, all. I see many new and young faces, but the old ones continue to increase in number every year I repeat this lecture. It makes you think, doesn't it? To the new students, this, our prestigious institution, welcomes you to your new career in the field of economics, and wishes you prosperity and Godspeed. Founded 1537 years ago by the illustrious... All right, no need to cause a ruckus. We can forego the standard presentation. Again. The new generations. So impatient. All right, where was I? Most of you might have heard of the Independent Confederacy of Terror. Truthfully, they are just a bunch of planets and their colonies, fighting each other for resources, and still below the average technological level of our Galactic Federation. Then why are these creatures so fascinating? After all, they still behave like pre-warp primitives, don't they? Well, yes and no. Of all of the races here, do any of you still use currency in their day-to-day lives? Hands up. No? No surprises there. Have any of you ever been hungry? And, of course, I don't mean after a hard day studying. Truly hungry. Days without eating hungry. Again, no hands. Is anyone here living on the streets? No home to call their own? Thought so. We're all from post-scarcity civilizations, after all. This might have been the plights of our ancestors millennia ago. Would you believe me if I said that merely 100 years ago, I found myself in such a situation? Or that many humans still do, even to this day? No, of course not. You're all too young to remember the Great Galactic Crisis. We have the humans to thank for that, and I mean really, unironically, thank them for that. If you make it to the 3rd year, I heavily encourage all of you to select human economics as one of your electives. You won't have much use for it, but it'll help you understand how this economic powerhouse that's our Federation has one glaring weak spot. Weak spot, you might be thinking. Our Federation? This old man has gone senile. After all, every single citizen has everything they need. Where are the flaws? Think about that again. Everything they need. Yes, of course, when you are ill, you can go to the hospital, and they'll provide you with the medicine or the procedure you need. When you require food, all you need to do is order it, and a drone will deliver it straight to your refrigerator unit. If you need clothes, there are many auto-tailor stations that will stitch one together to your specifications, or they will repair anything you're wearing to the point it feels like brand new. But have any of you ever wondered how or why this is possible? Well, of course you have. Or you would be enrolling in the Faculty of Medicine, am I right? I jest. The answer is as simple as it's complex. And if you want to truly understand it, you might find the Computer Engineering University, located in the building around the corner. The answer is our industrial base owes everything it is to our advanced robotics and overseen artificial intelligences. They do all the heavy lifting, sometimes very literally, so youngsters like you can do all the heavy thinking, or if you're lazy, become a writer or a poet. Again, a small joke. No offense. Indeed, these hard-working machines provide us with everything we need. Some of you might have finally caught a glimpse of where I'm leading the conversation. Well, monologue. What happens when we don't have what we need? Come on, this is easy. If you can't answer that, well, I did mention the building around the corner, didn't I? Sorry. We happen. It's our duty to reach out and fix that problem. Normally by trading with other races. Sometimes by finding new opportunities within our borders, if possible, but such breakthroughs are rare. Most of the time your job will be that of a diplomatic envoy, tasked with reaching an agreement with your neighbor, to exchange something you have for something you need. It's very simple, really. Cost-benefit analysis is the first thing you'll be taught. This is roughly how we determine the value of two different products. We add the amount of energy, materials, time, and labor, including transport and construction of new manufacturing facilities and infrastructures necessary to create said product, plus the cost of shipping. And we deduct the same for its counterpart, and we arrive at a ratio. For example, 2-to-1. Then a deal is struck. It's no different than warfare. Surprised? What do warfare and economics have to do with each other? Well, this might sound unbelievable at first, but some of you might end up in the military. Nothing as fancy as piloting a battlecruiser, of course. War is more of the same. Two factions calculate a cost-benefit analysis of a potential conflict. There's a good deal of guessing, bluffing, and gambling, but it boils down to the same principle. After all, no sane species would continue to fight when the odds are against them and is not logically sound anymore. Right? It's better to cut your losses than to double down and risk losing even more. I did mention humans earlier, didn't I? You see, humans are not like everyone else. That is not to say they are crazy, but there's a reason they are an independent confederacy, and not a part of our galactic federation, let alone the common market. Humans have needs, just like me and you, but humans also have wants. Let me explain. Why does your local magistrate have a bigger house than you or I? The answer is obvious. He deserves it, right? His job is more important to society, and thus the value of his residence reflects the value of his contribution to our civilization. Why does a human have a bigger house than you or I? Simple. Because he wants to, and because he can. They are a species driven by want. It's no different than thirst or hunger. One could say it's a biological imperative as well, one that can never be sated no matter how much you have. So, one can hardly blame them. Asking them to stop would be like asking a Drectarian to stop glowing and humming at night. Yes, both can be annoying, but they cannot stop doing what they do. It's in their nature. To us, that system sounds illogical. What would be the point of possessing several houses, several vehicles, several comm devices, more food than you could ever eat in a lifetime? We all have what we need whenever we need it, for free. Why more? Well, the answer to this question came to us 147 years ago, and it slammed into our faces like a wall of solid duratanium during a 50G deceleration with inertial dampeners offline. If you know your history, you know what I'm talking about. And to those who don't, no, that's not the date when we made first contact with humans. Humans were discovered over 200 years ago, but their economic system and low technological development were deemed incompatible with the values of the Federation, and we simply ignored them. 147 years ago. That's the date when we made first contact with the Tshirt hive mind, which, ironically enough, is now one of the longest-term alien members of the Confederacy. Yes, not all of them are humans. You might all gasp in awe. Ahem. Well, the first contact with the Hive was no different than most. After all, the Federation is host to many Gestalt consciousnesses, be it biological or artificial. The Tshirt was an autarchy at that point. That means they produced everything they needed, and there was no need to trade with anyone else. This caused some friction with many members who saw the new Hive as conflictive because they refused to trade. So, of course, we, economists, come to the rescue. We ran our cost-benefit analysis of what it would take to invade a fringe border world, and so the military did, based on our suggestion. It was, as the humans put it, a piece of cake. The Hive barely put up a resistance, and the invasion was over in a matter of days. Our prediction models calculated that retaking the planet would be too costly compared to the long-term benefits for the Tshirt to do so. As it turned out, they didn't care. By the end of the week, the Hive had lost, to our estimates, over 25% of their active fleet at the time, while the Federation lost a measly 5%. However, this had turned into the most unprofitable invasion in the history of our galactic government. It was simply unacceptable, but most importantly, it was utterly inconceivable. To all accounts, no logical being would ever greenlight such an operation. By the end of the month, the Federation had lost over 30% of the fleet and an entire sector of its space. Of course, we had been suing for peace long before that, but in truth, again, the Hive didn't care, and to us it made no sense. We calculated the Klasiki fleet has suffered casualties in excess of 150% of their starting fleet. We could not understand how they were able to replace their losses so fast, or why they kept fighting despite such catastrophic and unprofitable numbers. After all, there was no other race this reckless, this uncompromising, this illogical, this... Ah, now you get it. I know what you're thinking. This was supposed to be a story about humans, no? Yes, this is the part where they come in. After it finally hit us, we contacted the humans. Much to our surprise, we learned they've been fighting the Klasiki for the past quarter of a century. Surely you can understand why this left us astonished. Before the Great War against the Klasiki, there has not been a single war in the history of the Federation lasting more than half a year, and the humans have been fighting alone for over 25 years against a foe that kicked our collective asses in less than a month, while simultaneously fighting a war on two fronts. We were even more surprised to learn that what we call war, the humans call a border skirmish, and that they've been doing that to themselves for the entire history of their civilization. Truly, that was the epitome of insanity. But at that time, insanity was what we needed. Most of what they proposed was so bizarre and outlandish that we had trouble wrapping our heads around the issue, but we were not in a position to argue. We took those human loans and credits. I know it's a hard concept, but let me explain. Imagine there's a grid malfunction, and your food for the week cannot be delivered. I, your neighbour, offer to loan you a meal. That is, I will give you my food, and you'll, after a previously agreed upon period of time has passed, you'll have to return that food, plus some extra food. This is what the humans call interest, though I never fully understood what was so interesting about it. Yes, this is pure nonsense, of course. Why would you even want the extra food? Well, humans do, and humans had all that extra food, all those extra ships and soldiers and resources we lost and could not replace. Their economy is based around producing an unnecessary excedent and accumulating stockpiles only so everyone can get what they want. Meanwhile, we who could only get what we needed were suddenly unable to get it because our grid was down. Hell, our entire economy was down. Our trade agreements all fell apart as the Hive disrupted our supply lines, and no one understood the concept of trading goods for the promise of payment in the far future. You can see where this is going. It took the best part of a year to integrate both economies. Let me tell you, human bureaucracy is completely aberrant to anything you've ever experienced in your life. They arbitrarily charge fees and taxes for everything. That means, for example, that if you ship something from one planet to another, they'll take a percentage of the cargo on top of the shipping cost. Truly ludicrous. Anyway, with no small amount of compromise on our behalf, we managed to work together, and with the help of human tacticians and mercenaries, as they call their expeditionary forces, we slowly managed to push the Hive back on every front. I will not bore you with war stories and space battles, but it took us almost a decade to force the Klasiki to capitulate, and by that point, every side had suffered massive casualties. Of course, by the end of the war, our economy was in shambles, and we were finally beginning to understand the consequences of loaning. May you never have to experience them in your life. This is precisely why I suggested taking a course in human economy, if only to learn about the dreadful consequences of their system. It took the Federation 3/4 of a century to fully recover. And the craziest part of it all is that it took the Klasicki and the humans only 30 years to recover, and they ended up becoming allies. Now, this old man's ramblings might make it sound like humans are evil barbarians, but the ultimate lesson you should learn is that both systems work, only that one works better in abundance, while the other triumphs in scarcity. I know some still resent the humans for what they did to us, but they keep forgetting that without them, it's likely we'd all be dead. So I'd like you to remember that in case our Federation ever encounters another species of uncompromising warmongers. Questions? A myriad of appendages rose as the auditorium erupted into an uproar.